This is the Rank 3 Photon Ultimate Showcase. This has been in the making for a while. I've been holding back on it because there's just been a bunch of other champions I've been trying to farm content for other than Photon, mainly because she's been a character that we already know and love, right? There are other champion showcases that I'm working on right now who are much more new and interesting, or maybe much more specialized, I should say, at specific other areas of the game that I've been just trying to work on a lot more than this, but I need to get it out, right? Because if we go back to like the list of rank 3s I have, the last one I made an Ultimate Showcase on was Silk, who was my 9th, and MCoC, who was my 10th. He was probably not getting a showcase. I already farmed enough MCoC content back when he was slightly relevant, and now I just don't think there's anything I can really do to show him doing cool stuff. I don't think I can figure anything out for that. But my 11th is Photon, and after Photon, we're gonna just go from there and figure out what champions I feel the need to talk about. Because we already know how great Photon is, and if you don't know the full potential of Photon, I'm hoping that this video is going to help educate you a bit, because we're going to be taking her in a variety of different game modes, not necessarily a lot of Battlegrounds content, and there is a reason for that. There's a couple of reasons for that, actually, but we're going to start with these Realm of Legends fights. I'm going to do 2 of them. The reason I'm doing 2 of them is because there are kind of like 2 different ways a Photon fight goes. One is when you start unramped, the other one's when you start ramped. And you're going to see from the time difference that they're pretty different fights. With Photon, you get to 25 pure light charges, you enter the pure light mode, and then you do a bunch of damage. But those pure light charges can carry over from fight to fight, meaning that the second fight, being Captain Marvel, we're going to have a lot more pure light charges when we start the fight. And that's just going to make our ramp go a lot faster, get the Furies up a lot quicker, get the extra benefits on our special attacks earlier, and then we're just kind of vibing. But SP1 kills Winter Soldier, and with class disadvantage and no ramp, we still kill in 50 seconds, which is actually quite decent if you ask me. And then next up, we're going to be fighting Captain Marvel, starting the fight with 19 charges, which is only 6 away from what gets us into pure light damage mode and everything. So I'm going to go for the parry, do a combo here. Looks like I actually start with 18 instead of 19. I can't read, but it's okay. We're going to get the 25th right when she drops a special there. Countering specials from the defender, pause pure lights, which is really, really cool. That's really, really important too. And then when you throw the SP1, you're going to be placing an overload debuff. Overload is basically trauma, like on Red Guardian, except it is energy damage that triggers it, and energy damage is what the damage comes from. And then they're both 10%, but with the energy vulnerability debuffs, that goes even higher to a number that I really don't even know because of how diminishing returns work and stuff, but we cut some of the fight time on that. I wouldn't say a lot, but we definitely cut some of the fight time, and it was a pretty fast Realm of Legends fight still. So this fight's going to be against a MCoC. He is running the recoil masteries. Sorry about that. I was doing some testing. My friend wanted to do some fights with recoils. So obviously this MCoC's not going to have the most insane lifespan, shall we say. But it's still going to be a pretty cool fight. This is from the Provocateur meta, which Photon was excellent for because she can't miss in pure light, and she has the Petrify for the power gain, basically like the War meta. And then we're going to be showing off some War fights from that War meta too, because Photon was always banned during Decay. I don't know what the heck I was doing there, but it actually worked out decently for me. And yeah, for the War meta, we're showing her off in Provocateur because she was always banned during Decay, and this is a pretty fun War meta for her anyway, because of the fact that she's not actually tagged Provocateur, or Secutor I should say, but she still works. The reason for that is because they have the clause where if you counter their special attack, then they are going to pause the power charges that they're going to gain, Once they reach 15 power charges, they're going to get a power gain and having a chance to miss. But if you keep pausing that, then you're just kind of chilling. And obviously you could pause that with any character, but Photon's added safety of being able to use Petrify to counter the power gain and counter the miss from the power gain, if the tactic becomes live, is just super good. It became super safe for war. And also Photon's just like the perfect war champion. She's super good for this game mode. I think I have like 4 or 5 fights from this game mode, all tactic fights, I believe, except maybe one. So that just goes to show some of her power level. And back to why I didn't include a lot of BG's fights. Photon is a great BG's attacker, but you don't see it too often because you mainly draft her to place her in defense because she is the best defender in the science class by a long shot, and one of the best defenders in the game in general. So that's usually where she goes on defense. I didn't really have the opportunity to use her on attack because of how strong she is on defense, even though she still is a strong BG's attacker regardless. Either way, we're fighting this Enchantress on node 48. If you played any of the Provocateur Secutor meta, you know that Enchantress is the worst defender to fight by far. She was absolutely torturous to fight. I fought her 20 out of 24 wars that season. Eat a heavy attack there, removing some of my invul boost, which is annoying, but it's whatever. Basically, the problem was Enchantress has a clause where her power gain cannot be reduced below a certain percentage. I think it's 50%. So she would get her power gain prevented by the heal block from tactic or Photon's natural petrify or something, but it's capped at how low it can go because of that clause in her kit. And it just made her a nightmare to fight, even if you were using a perfect tactic champ, because you cannot fully counter that power gain no matter what. And it was even annoying for Photon still. Like, this is node 48. Node 48 is a really good node for Photon, because it's interesting. She is one of the best science characters at fighting Conflictor, which is a node that science infamously gets a little bit messed up by. Conflictor is the node that will trigger a debuff purification every 7 seconds, and then they gain a 75% of a bar of power when that triggers. And Photon, because of the fact that whenever she places a debuff, she's going to place the Petrify, she ignores Conflictor mainly. You can absolutely afford to have some of those debuffs purified. You do not need to have them in the slightest, or at least not all of them. You don't want them being purified constantly, but like 1 every 7 seconds ain't hurting Photon at all. So, alright, this fight is Werewolf by Night on node 45. This is also Conflictor, but it is also Hazard Shift, Bleed, and Shock. Photon is immune to bleed. We have Odin pre-fights from another alliance mate, giving me the resistance to the shock portion of the node. And even if I didn't have those Odin pre-fights, I think I could do this fight pretty easily because of Inequity, which is one of Photon's best masteries. And I always run 3 out of 3 or 2 out of 3, I don't remember. I run at least 2 out of 3 on it all the time. And her base energy resists at 30%. So this is another Hazard Shift fight where I have the Odin pre-fight set up. Again, I can do this without them, but it's war. We're playing for maximum safety, so I'm gonna of course get them if I feel like I can. So this Magneto is also on one eye open, meaning I can't really ever parry him. An interesting way Photon can actually get openings is if she decides to get parried, because that's going to trigger your untouchable, and then you can just hit him from there. So that's pretty funny. But here, actually, I think it triggers. I accidentally got parried, and then I triggered the untouchable, and then I was just kind of vibing. But we want to keep countering Magneto's special ones here, drop the SP2, and again, it's a tactic fight, so we needed to counter his specials as often as possible, and we did that. So those are my Alliance War fights. This Prowler is in Autumn of Agony. We're going to take 3 of the 4 Autumn of Agony bosses with Photon. I did not take Jabari. I think my Photon was rank 3 when Jabari came out, but like that fight sounds kind of torturous, even though it definitely could work. I've seen Spider-Punk do that fight, for crying out loud. Anyway, Photon being immune to, or not immune to falter, she does get faltered, but her mediums cannot miss. And when she's in pure light form, none of her attacks can miss. So it makes her pretty good for this Prowler fight. Because you just do not give a crap about not being able to counter his specials. You can just do it whenever you feel like. Pretty great. I do a medium there because, again, those are the only attacks that can't miss while I'm not in pure light form. So I do need to make sure that I still don't trigger the miss. And then we drop an SP3 here. That gives me a regen passive. Which is actually paused when I'm striking the opponent, but I don't really have the opportunity to strike the opponent. It's a nice regen passive. You're going to see it come into play more when we get to the Necropolis fights later. But either way, this Prowler he's got a lot of health left, but we just entered pure light form for the first time. And remember, Photon can counter Prowler's special attacks like most champs can't, because of the fact that we can't miss. It's absolutely glorious. Love to see it. And I'm dropping this SP2 here before I get power drained. He's taunted now. He's going to keep throwing more specials for us to counter, which is just going to keep pausing our pure light form, and we're just in a perfect rhythm at this point. If all keeps going as well as it is now, I'm going to be able to kill the Prowler before my first pure light form even ends. Drop an SP1 there, place some overloads. They do some decent damage, especially if I can keep stacking energy vulnerabilities, which I have 8 of at the moment. That was a nasty blocked hit too, because Photon reduces the opponent's block proficiency by a lot based on your Photon Sig level. So, that's pretty cool. Got power drained a little there, because I couldn't reach 2 bars of power fast enough. It doesn't really matter too much. And look, this Prowler's just melting. Like, he's so dead. I want him to throw an SP1 here. He doesn't feel like it. But I need to get to an SP2 now, actually. He threw the special just in the nick of time, before my pure light ran out, and then I get the pause, and then we go for an SP2 right there, and I think that kills him. Yes, it does. So, Photon absolutely killed that Eternity of Pain or Autumn of Agony fight. Gonna be one of the best options for it when we have the Gauntlet coming up in a couple weeks. So next up is Cassie. This is a bit of a test to see how little Photon relies on debuffs. And this still ended up being like a 4-minute fight. I'm not going to say that you can use Photon against anti-debuff matchups and it goes well, because clearly it still was a little rough. But it went still decently. I'm going to go for an SP3 here, and that's going to give me a higher maximum amount of charges. Every time you drop an SP3 in Photon's fight, you're going to increase the maximum pure light charges you can have by 5, max of 40. So you can trigger it 3 times in a fight. In the Necropolis fights, it's going to come more into play. Really like when SP3s kind of boost a character's damage for longer fights, because I still like some of the longer fights that this game has to offer, like some Necropolis stuff and Autumn of Agony. I like that more than sometimes BGs. I accidentally get knocked down, triggering my pure light, so that's going to add a lot of time, unfortunately. But the gimmick of this fight was make sure that when the Untouchable and Evade alternate, you have the matching Pursuit or Vigilance to counter them. The Untouchable is for special attacks only, the Evade is for basic attacks only, both of which are going to be annoying, but for the special attack one, we don't have to worry about it that much because of the fact that Photon cannot miss, in case you didn't hear me tell you the first time, when she's in pure light form or forever on her mediums. So, dropping another SP2 here. I'm going to place a taunt, but the taunt doesn't last too long because of the node that reduces the duration of debuffs on the opponent per debuff on the opponent. So, if you have 3 debuffs on the opponents, it's reduced by 90%. 4, they just like don't even trigger. Something like that. So, this Cassie is almost dead. She's at 9% health. The energy vulnerabilities do impact a lot of Photon's damage, of course, but even without them, you're still able to get the fight down. And not the best speed, granted, but it still went pretty well. and the ability to just throw specials into the untouchable if I ever needed to was some really nice utility. Now we have the current Autumn of Agony fight, and that is the Heimdall. Talked over this boss a little bit on Thursday, but it's an interesting boss, that's for sure. Basically, you want someone who can just do a lot of damage and then have the ability to ideally do a lot more damage on special attacks. Because once you knock them down, he's going to release all his stored damage or whatever, and then he's going to take a large burst. One thing I found was really useful for this fight is if you have a character with an unblockable special too, because then you can remove the unstoppable node by baiting his heavy attack at your 2 bars of power and just dropping it into the heavy attack, which will remove the unstoppable node. I think it's called like a break passive or something. I don't remember even. Either way, that was kind of the main gimmick of this fight, was like that break passive. And here you're going to see me do the funny thing. Bait heavy, drop unblockable SP2, it removes the unstoppable node, and then he gets knocked down at the end of the attack, triggering the battery node. So it's literally just repeating this until he dies. Ideally, my pure light form lasts the whole way through, and bait heavy, dex the first hit, and then just drop the SP2, and then we go back in. Bait is special 1 because it's Matador, so I need this guy throwing as many special 1s as possible, which the suppression is working a little bit against, but it's not that big a deal, right? He's still throwing frequent special attacks. So charge a heavy, drop the special 2, ideally we get some crits on it. Not really sure if we did or not, obviously, but either way he's at 10% now. I'm like, the SP1's probably going to do it. And then it does. So he goes down, and we move on to Cryoversary content, actually. This is just what my version of questing content is going to be for this showcase. It has a lot more interesting defenders, because they're all released in the year of 2023, because I could only do the 2023 quest with Photon based off of the tag locks. And then the game lag sucked in this fight. Like, and then that happened. I eat the SP1. Somehow. Anyway, funny things happened. It's okay. We're gonna get back on track. Right at 48 infestation, and then the damage just starts pouring in. So, Photon's really good for Kindred. Definitely like this matchup. And then I'm just gonna let the Cryoversary fights play out. Again, they don't have nodes, but they're more interesting defenders than a lot of other questing content, so just like that, I will be back for the Necropolis fights. Here we at the Necropolis fights. There's going to be two of them, Wiccan and Tigra, two of the mystics in this quest. I do think Photon's probably going to need to be fighting a mystic for class advantage to solo a lot of necro fights. Some of these get cut close. I wouldn't say that it's that tight a window of killing the defender, because let's remember, this is not a character who is designed to be taking long fights. It was mainly short fights, especially in Alliance War content and questing scenarios, so the fact that she can still take some decent Necropolis fights and half the damage range for that is still pretty impressive. But as far as Wiccan goes, this is the most unimpactful node on a Necropolis defender, in my opinion. It's like if you guys have the same amount of bars of power for 12 seconds, then he's going to power steal you. Never has this once triggered on me, at least not that I remember, and it definitely didn't happen in this fight. So the secondary node, like the weapon node or whatever you want to call it, is the one that has the tranquilize when I parry, so we're never going to parry in this fight, which Photon can handle pretty well because she increases her own block efficiency via her sig ability. She has energy resist, she has inequity, she's a very tanky person, so block that special 2 there, which again I can afford to do pretty much hands down. And now we're at 40 of our necro charges, so we have 8 furies, and our pure light's going to last for a long time. We can reverse some of his healing from his SP1, however that's not going to be the main focus of the damage, and it's not going to be impacting things too much in the long run. We want to spam SP2s here. I want to keep the taunt active to just keep countering specials and repeating. Going for intercepts or baiting heavies, either one is fine. Go for a heavy attack there, knock him down. We do want to try to knock him down when he's going to trigger the flame spell, because that's the only really rough one in this fight. Flame we will have a little bit of resistance of damage to, but it's still going to hurt a little bit. So anyway, we're down halfway through the fight now. I need to be more intentional about throwing my relic, and then we should be a-okay for killing this guy. Keep baiting the SP1s. Once he's rooted, I'm going to keep blocking them, which is fine. I can also probably dex it pretty easily. I was just a little bit nervous. There I got the flame spell on me, so that's doing not a lot of damage, but damage regardless, and it's pretty annoying. So ideally that thing falls off of me eventually, but he keeps pausing it with his SP1s that I also want him throwing at the same time, and then he just throws a combo into me, so that kind of sucks. But then I eat the SP1, I'm like, okay, am I really going to throw this fight away? I might actually throw this fight away. But here it finally falls off, but so is my pure light form. So now, I'm like, well, now I've got to find a way to kill him. That's okay. The regen's still under control via Despair and the personal Petrify, so what's going to happen is I'm going to gain a decent bit of pure light charges, and then trigger the pure light manually right here. So only 3 Furies, but 3 Furies is enough. And then he's going to go down with this combo right there. And then we move on to the second Necro fight, which is going to be against Tigra. Tigra has a couple things in this fight. The main one is that when she has her orange sense, she's going to place ruptures on hit and through block. If she has the blue sense, then your light attacks have a 50% chance to miss. And miss, again, Photon counters very easily. So we want to be baiting a lot of special attacks to obviously counter them, keep the pure light form pause. However, she's still going to be punching me by gaining those senses, specifically the orange one, because that's the one that's really going to be more impactful in this fight for me, because I don't want to get ruptured through the block. And we're already down to 28% because I was playing really bad at the start. But that's okay. We're going to be fine for the rest of this fight. I want to build up to 20 pure light charges, because if I throw the special 3 at 20, then I'm going to gain that regen passive, which is going to pause when I'm striking the opponent, which is just obviously really huge at getting my health back up in this fight after I lost a lot of it. Go for a parry there, relic, and we're back up to 43%. and we're going to stay at 35 pure light charges for the rest of the fight. Secondary node here is going to be the one where they dash in and go unstoppable. She's not going to be doing a lot of dash-ins if I keep her in the corner a lot and keep baiting her special attacks, so it's not that big a deal. And that's kind of the fight. I'm actually going to stop talking here and start signing out. I do hope you enjoyed this video, finally getting some showcase videos back. It took me a while between my last one and this one, but hopefully I'll be getting back into the swing of things with those for some upcoming rank 3s that I have. So, thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.